Surely you bumped into feminism at some point of your life. Could have been through your friends, family members. Maybe they were just talking about it. Maybe you were just watching the news and you saw protesters. They wanted equal rights. They wanted to be treated equally as men. Or you might have just been on your Facebook, clicked on a picture, and in the comment section somebody said, "Oh, here come the feminists." Well, feminism actually is viewed in a wrongful way nowadays. What people think that a feminist is a woman that wants to have not only the same rights as men, not only wants to be treated the same way, but actually what people tend to think is that they want to go over. They want to be treated better than men. They want a few more rights than we have. Well, that's wrong. I'd like to share with you guys 2 short stories. Last year, I was living with a friend and his wife. About 3 months after I moved in with them, I asked the wife, did she go to college? Does she have any higher education? She told me, yes, I do. I have an architectural degree. I'm an architect. And I asked her, if you're an architect, why are you working as a nanny? There's nothing wrong with being a nanny, nothing at all. But I'm just wondering, she went to university for that. She got a degree. She spent her money and her time to get it. She should be reaping the rewards. She told me that her husband actually doesn't like the fact that she made more money than he does. And I started thinking, that's pretty ridiculous. I mean, by her working, her making more money than he does, she's actually helping the household. You have to think about both of you at the same time. It's not just one person. He felt less masculine, less of a man, because of the fact that his wife made more money than he did. That's wrong to think that way. That makes the woman think that she's actually inferior to you, inferior to the man, which is absolutely not true. Also, it is hindering the amount of wealth that can be collected from the family. The other story I'd like to mention is about my sister and my mom. My mom actually posted on Facebook about 4 months ago a picture of my little sister. They were both knitting. There's nothing wrong with it. A man can knit, a woman can do it too. There's nothing wrong. What got to me was the fact that a family friend, a close family friend, she commented, "Oh good, you're getting her ready for later on." This really bothered me because of the fact that I don't want to think of my sister as somebody that she's going to go through her life. She's going to go through from now that she's 5 years old until she might get married when she's 26, 27. She does all of that. She goes to university. She pays for school. She invests her time, everything, just to get married and be stuck at home. That's what she's going to be looking forward to if we keep this mentality that women have their role in the relationship. They're supposed to be the wife. Wife isn't really something that you're looking forward to as getting connected to somebody else, but it's more of a job. That's not how it should be. We'd like to talk to you guys today about feminist history, its global spectrum, and third wave feminism, and radical feminists. Radical feminists are the ones that are actually giving feminism a bad name. A lot of people, when they think about feminists, they think, oh wow, they're actually like that, I don't want to be dealing with them, I don't want to even look at them. That's just wrong what they're doing. But first off, I'd like to get Joseph talking about its history.
You. Today I'm going to talk about the history of feminism. And feminism as we know it now has only been around for about 150 plus years. It actually started in 1948 in Seneca Falls, New York, with the Declaration of Sentiments. And this was an outline of the grievances and set up an agenda for feminism in the future. There were 12 resolutions set by this, and they were adopted, and they were calling for the equal treatment of men and women under the right of law. 62 women and 32 men, some of which were Quakers, kind of like the Amish people. And a woman by the name of Elizabeth Cady Stanton. Elizabeth Cady Stanton was born in 1815, and she was a prominent feminist and abolitionist of her time. She was very liberal. She wanted everyone to have equal rights. She went on and formed in 1869 the National Women's Suffrage Association with another prominent feminist, Susan B. Anthony. This association had a primary goal of getting women the right to vote by congressional amendment, which needs to be ratified by every state if it was passed through Congress. In the same year, Wyoming actually, which was not a state, passed the first women's suffrage law and allowed women to participate in government and in juries and vote on state matters, which is a huge step forward. And then in 1919, the women's suffrage law written by Susan B. Anthony, pictured here, actually was passed by Congress and sent to the states and to be ratified. And in 1920, women earned the right to vote by Congress. This happened an entire 70 years after they started out on their mission at Seneca Falls, New York, with their Declaration of Sentiments. In 1921, Margaret Sanger formed the Birth Control League, American Birth Control League, which would allow women to be able to take birth control and control contraceptives, which would be a massive step forward from that time. It was later in 1942 evolved into the Planned Parenthood Federation, which would allow men to also be involved, and it was equal. It created equality in that aspect, which was huge. In 1960, the FDA finally approved birth control. It was safe, ethical, moral to take, and that women had the right to take it to have contraception and prevent pregnancy if they wanted to prevent it. While in 1961, President John F. Kennedy established the President's Commission on the Status of Women and appointed the former First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt as chairwoman. The commission issued a report in 1963 documenting substantial discrimination against women in the workplace. It makes for specific recommendations for improvement, including fair hiring practices, paid maternity leave, which would allow them, after they give birth, to have time off to recuperate and spend time with the baby, and affordable child care so that their child could be taken care of while they work, because they would be working now. Well, in the same year, the Equal Pay Act was brought to Congress, hoping to secure equal wages for both men and women, but was shot down. And it's still been shot down today, which people think is a bad thing, but realistically, many feminists actually agree that it would not be helpful to the cause. It actually brings the government into hiring practices and creates more issues than it would actually solve. And in 1964, the Civil Rights Act, which banned discrimination when hiring an employee by their race, gender, sexual orientation, anything, which massive. That's one of the biggest steps forward in this movement. Followed by, in 1973, Roe v. Wade, which was a Supreme Court case, allowed women to have the legal right to have a legal and safe abortion, which caused a lot of national debate on morals and religion. And then brought up the pro-life, pro-choice matter. Many people believe that Roe v. Wade was the end of what is considered the second wave of feminism and the beginning of what's called third wave feminism. And Carolyn will take up where I leave and discuss third wave feminism.
So with the success, the accomplishments of the first and second wave of feminism, the right to vote, the right to work, the right to a higher education, and the right to control one's body, who would think we would need a third wave? Well, one woman in particular, a young 23-year-old African-American woman named Rebecca Walker, who is the daughter of the author Alice Walker, who wrote the book The Color Purple. Rebecca Walker here, she wrote an article in 1992 to Miss Magazine titled, "I am the Third Wave." And in that article, she wrote, "I am not the post-feminism feminist, I am the third wave." And with that, her article, she got an amazing response. Many people thought the same thing as she did. And with that, she became sort of the walking symbol of what the third wave is. And a couple of third wave feminists for today. A couple of them you may know, Beyonce, Madonna, Oprah Winfrey, and then Emma Watson, who actually in 2014, last year, went in front of the UN Congress and spoke about feminism and how it is not what it's taken to be. Third wave feminism, its focus is not on the political side nowadays, it's more on the individuality and how it's involving everyone. It's about basically upon the realization that women are not of just one color, they are of many colors, they are of many nationalities, they come from many places, have many different religions, and it's not just women. So right here, we can all do it. And you can take feminism and put it into your own identity, into that belief, and make it to what it can be. Because we all want to feel awesome. We don't want to be put down because someone says, "We can't do this. You can't do that. You can't have your hair so short. You can't wear that dress. No, you're a boy." No, that is not what, that's not what it should be. And nowadays, the first and second waves, they were more focused on the industrialized nations, and third wave is now focusing on the global perspective. So, with the use of the internet, we're able to interact with people from other nations and empower them to actually make a change in their communities, in their own nations. And from the youth all the way to those of the older generation that feel the same way. You can share it, like it, or even create your own thing about it. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Anna, because she is going to be covering the global side of things.
All right, so discrimination against women is still a very real problem in the world. And even though we've made great strides in America to go against it, it's still devastating throughout the rest of the world. A few decades ago, the United Nations created an organization meant to eliminate all forms of discrimination against women. It's supposed to give women the right to take part in their nation's public and political life, but not much has changed. It wasn't as effective as it's been planned. In many countries, women are still unable to purchase their own property, vote, or even wear what they want. In Africa, there's still female genital mutilation. It's 2014, and that's still a thing, so just think about that. Or in 2015. Throughout Asia, Latin America, Africa, and Central and Eastern Europe, sex trafficking is also a huge problem, as well as female baby genocide. In a lot of countries, the male population is favored over the female, and there's actually a great gap. In India and in China, the ratio is about 90 women for every 100 men. So if you count that up, that becomes pretty big over a while. Women form the majority of the world's poorest people, and the number of the women living in rural poverty has increased by 50% since 1975. Women were 2/3 of the world's working hours and produce half of the world's food, yet they only earn 10% of the world's income and own less than 1% of the world's property. This is in the whole world. Violence against women throughout the world and in all cultures, well, in many cultures, it still prevails on an unimaginable scale. And women's access to justice is often paired with discriminatory obstacles in law as well as in practice. And as you may be able to gather so far, there's a major inequality between men and women, but I have some more specific examples. Specifically in Saudi Arabia in October of 2013, Saudi Arabian women went behind the wheel to protest their country's refusal to grant driver's license to women, and they challenged not only long-standing restriction, but also the larger system of Saudi Arabian gender-based laws, some of the harshest in the world. And as you may not know, after this picture was taken, these women were actually dragged out of their cars and beaten. Yeah, for their rebellion. In Saudi Arabia and in Morocco, rape victims can be charged with crimes. Many countries fail to protect the victims of rape, but some go even a step further, punishing them for being unaccompanied with a man, or for being with an unrelated man alone, or even just for getting pregnant after they're raped. It's their fault. There was one suicide in Morocco a few years ago that hit the headlines. There was a huge outrage and cries for this 16-year-old girl named Amina Filawi. She killed herself after a judge forced her to marry her alleged rapist because to keep in policy that it invalidates statutory rape if the two parties marry. So to dismiss the case, we had the two people married and she killed herself. It's awful. And in some states of India, road safety rules don't apply to women. Women are exempted from safety rules that mandate passengers wear seatbelts and that motorcycle passengers wear helmets. And this exemption kills thousands and thousands of people each year, just in India alone. Women's rights advocates have argued that this exemption springs from a worldwide cultural devaluation of women's lives, but still, again, nothing has happened. In Yemen, the policy on legal testimony says that women are not counted as a full witness. It says that, from a 2005 Freedom House report, it clearly quotes, it says, women are not recognized as a full person before the court. So specifically, it means that a single woman's testimony isn't taken seriously unless she's backed by a man's testimony, or if it concerns a place where a man wouldn't be, or like something that a man wouldn't know anything about. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, and then even furthermore in Yemen, women can't say anything at all in cases of rape, adultery, or theft. They have no say whatsoever. They don't matter. As you can tell, gender equality is essential for the achievement of human rights, not just for women, but for everybody. It sets the standard for everyone should be treated equally. It is critical to involve men and women rather than only women. Gender biases are usually embedded in culture, and it's very difficult to eliminate them without having a holistic view and without involving men as part of the solution. The fight for gender equality must be fought by everyone. There have been a few famous feminists come from all over the world. There have been a few feminists who come from all over the world. One in particular is Eva Perón. She was the first lady of Argentina during the mid-1900s. Her leadership styles and efforts were slightly questionable and criticized in Argentina because she had a slightly more radical view and kind of rubbed some people the wrong way. But nevertheless, she still notably helped pioneer Argentina's feminist movement, and in the late 40s, she founded the Female Peronist Party, which helped grant women the right to vote as well as attend university. And Melanie, I'm going to talk to you guys more about radical feminism.
So like Emmanuel said, a lot of times when people hear the word feminist or someone identifies themselves as a feminist, the image that pops into their mind is a mob of angry, man-hating women. And unfortunately, those do exist. Like in any religious group or any people's rights group, there's always extremists. You have Al-Qaeda for the Muslim religion, you have Westboro Baptist Church for Christianity, and just like that, in feminism, there are radical feminists. So what do radical feminists believe? Radical feminism is a movement that believes sexism is so deeply rooted in society that the only cure is to eliminate the concept of gender completely. They also believe that all heterosexual sex is rape, that men should only make up 10% of the world's population, and obviously, without any heterosexual sex, this is how babies are made. They also believe that all men are rapists or oppressors, that gender is just a social construct, and that men should be denied the right to participate in feminism. There was one kind of infamous radical feminist named Valerie Solanas. She wrote a book called The Scum Manifesto. It didn't get a lot of attention until she attempted to kill Andy Warhol, which I hope everyone knows who that is. In her book, she began by presenting a theory that the male is an incomplete female who's genetically deficient due to the Y chromosome. According to Solanas, this genetic deficiency causes the male to be emotionally limited, egocentric, and incapable of mental passion or genuine interaction. She describes the male as lacking empathy and unable to relate to anything apart from his own physical sensations. The manifesto continues by arguing that the male spends his life attempting to become a female and thereby overcome his inferiority. He does this by constantly seeking out, fraternizing with, and trying to live through and fuse with a female. Solanas rejected Freud's theory of penis envy and instead claimed that men have pussy envy. She also accused men of turning the world into a shit pile, her words, not mine, and presented a long list of grievances that were due directly to by men. Again, I want to be very adamant about the fact that these theories are not in conjunction with what feminism actually is. They actually go quite the opposite way. Feminism is all about equality. And that being said, men can be feminists too. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is a very popular feminist. He's very outspoken about it, and he made a video discussing it, saying gender doesn't define who you are. You can be whoever or whatever you want to be. He continues by saying, if you look at history, women are an oppressed category of people. There's a long, long history of women suffering abuse, injustice, and not having the same opportunities as men. And I think that's been very detrimental to our race as a whole. And believe it or not, my favorite feminist is Tupac Shakur. One of my favorite songs by him was Keep Your Head Up. And in the song he says, since we all came from a woman, got our name from a woman, and our game from our woman, I wonder why we take from our women, why we rape our women, do we hate our women? I think it's time to kill for our women, time to heal our women, be real to our women. I almost broke out in song right there. I was trying not to. So I thank you guys for listening to our presentation, and we hope that you have a better understanding about what feminism is and the common misconceptions that go along with it. Feminism is less about empowerment of women and more about equal opportunities for everyone, regardless of their gender.